Maya Delacroix had always been what her friends called grounded, a 28-year-old graphic designer who approached life with methodical precision. She believed in facts, not fiction. Logic, not superstition. That's what made what happened to her in the autumn of 2023 so particularly unsettling. It began with small things. The kind of occurrences that, individually, could be dismissed as coincidence or stress. Maya had just moved into a studio apartment in downtown Portland, a converted warehouse space with exposed brick walls and large windows that flooded the room with natural light. The rent was surprisingly affordable, which should have been her first warning. The mirror came with the apartment. The landlord, Mrs. Kowalski, had mentioned it almost as an afterthought during the walkthrough. The previous tenant left that old thing, she'd said, gesturing toward the ornate mirror hanging on the bedroom wall. Said it was too heavy to move. You can keep it or get rid of it, whatever you prefer. Maya had decided to keep it. The mirror was beautiful in an old-world way, roughly 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide, framed in what appeared to be genuine mahogany with intricate carvings of roses and thorns. It looked expensive, certainly more valuable than anything she could afford on her salary. The first incident occurred 3 weeks after moving in. Maya was getting ready for work, applying mascara while standing before the mirror, when she noticed something in the reflection that made her freeze. For just a moment, perhaps half a second, she could have sworn she saw movement behind her. Not her own movement, but something else. Something that shouldn't have been there. She spun around, heart racing, but found nothing. The apartment was empty, silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. She looked back at the mirror, studying her own pale face staring back. Stress, she whispered to herself. Just stress from the move. But the incidents didn't stop. They escalated. Within days, Maya began experiencing what she later described as a constant feeling of being watched. The sensation was strongest in the bedroom, particularly when she was near the mirror. She would catch herself glancing at it repeatedly throughout the day, as if expecting to see something that wasn't there. Sleep became elusive. Maya would lie in bed, staring at the mirror's dark surface across the room, unable to shake the feeling that something was staring back. She tried covering it with a sheet, but somehow the fabric would always be on the floor by morning, though she had no memory of removing it. Her work began to suffer. Colleagues noticed her increasing irritability, her inability to concentrate. Dark circles formed under her eyes, and she lost weight rapidly. When her supervisor, Janet, asked if everything was okay, Maya found herself unable to articulate what was wrong. "I'm just tired," she would say, but it was more than tiredness. It was as if something was draining her from the inside out. The turning point came on a Tuesday night in November. Maya woke at 3:17 a.m. She would always remember the exact time because she'd developed a habit of checking the clock obsessively. The apartment was cold, unusually so, and her breath formed small clouds in the air. That's when she heard it, a sound like fingernails dragging across glass. She sat up in bed, every muscle in her body tense. The sound was coming from the direction of the mirror. In the dim light filtering through her window, she could see the mirror's surface seem to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. And then she saw it. A face, not quite human, pressed against the glass from the inside. Its eyes were black voids, and its mouth was stretched into an impossible smile that revealed rows of jagged teeth. The thing seemed to be trying to push through the mirror's surface, its features distorting as it pressed against the glass. Maya screamed, a sound that tore from her throat with such force it left her hoarse. She scrambled backward, falling off the bed and hitting the floor hard. When she looked up again, the mirror showed only her own terrified reflection. But the damage was done. That night marked the beginning of what Maya would later call the torment. The mirror, Maya discovered through obsessive research, had a history far darker than Mrs. Kowalski had revealed. Built in 1847 by a craftsman named Heinrich Vaughan, it had originally been commissioned for the Blackwood Estate, a mansion outside Salem, Oregon. The Blackwood family had been wealthy timber barons, but their fortune had been built on something far more sinister than logging. Marcus Blackwood, the patriarch, had been deeply involved in the occult. Historical records, which Maya found in the Portland Public Library's archives, detailed his correspondence with various mediums and his attempts to contact what he called the other side. The mirror had been specifically designed for scrying, a form of divination that involved gazing into reflective surfaces to receive visions or commune with spirits. The Blackwood family's end had been violent and mysterious. In 1863, Marcus, his wife Eleanor, and their 3 children were found dead in their home. The official cause of death was listed as unknown ailment, but contemporary newspaper accounts mention strange details. The family had been found in their nightclothes, arranged in a circle around the mirror, their faces frozen in expressions of absolute terror. The mirror had passed through numerous owners over the decades. Maya's research uncovered a disturbing pattern. Every family who had owned it had experienced tragedy. The Hendersons in 1902, the father had killed his wife and children before taking his own life. The Kowalskis in 1934, 3 family members had died in a house fire, but the mirror had remained untouched by the flames. The Parkers in 1967, all 4 family members had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only the mirror and a house filled with their belongings. Most recently, the mirror had belonged to David Reeves, the previous tenant of Maya's apartment. Maya managed to track down his former co-workers, who revealed that David had become increasingly erratic in his final months, claiming that something was coming through, and that he needed to stop it before it was too late. He had died in the apartment, officially ruled a suicide, though the circumstances were unusual. He had been found kneeling before the mirror, his wrists slashed, with strange symbols carved into the wooden frame. As Maya delved deeper into the mirror's history, the phenomena in her apartment intensified. The face in the mirror began appearing more frequently, sometimes during the day. It would watch her, its expression shifting from malevolent amusement to naked hunger. The temperature in the apartment would drop whenever it appeared, and Maya began to notice that electronics would malfunction in its presence. But it wasn't just visual manifestations. Maya began hearing whispers, always when she was alone, always too quiet to understand the words but loud enough to know they were there. The whispers seemed to come from the mirror itself, a constant murmur that grew louder when she tried to sleep. Physical manifestations followed. Maya would wake to find scratches on her arms and legs, 3 parallel lines that appeared overnight. Objects in the apartment would move on their own, books would fall from shelves, kitchen cabinets would open and close, and her computer would turn on by itself, displaying strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. The entity, for Maya had begun to think of it as an entity rather than a mere haunting, seemed to be growing stronger. What had started as subtle disturbances had evolved into direct, malevolent interference with her life. It was as if the thing in the mirror was feeding on her fear, her exhaustion, her growing desperation. Maya's attempts to remove the mirror proved futile. Every time she tried to take it down, something would go wrong. The first time, the mirror had somehow become impossibly heavy, as if it were made of lead rather than glass and wood. The second time, she had managed to lift it, but the glass had cracked, and she had seen something moving in the fractures, something that made her drop the mirror and flee the apartment for 3 days. When she returned, the mirror was whole again, hanging in its usual place, as if nothing had happened. Desperate for answers, Maya reached out to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a psychiatrist who specialized in trauma and unusual psychological phenomena. Dr. Rodriguez had agreed to meet with Maya after a particularly frantic late-night phone call in which Maya had described her experiences in disturbing detail. "I need you to understand," Maya had said, her voice shaking, "I'm not crazy. I know how this sounds, but something is happening to me. Something real." Dr. Rodriguez approached the case with professional skepticism. In her 15 years of practice, she had encountered numerous patients who claimed supernatural experiences, and in every case, the root cause had been psychological trauma, sleep deprivation, or underlying mental health conditions. Her initial evaluation of Maya revealed a young woman under extreme stress. Maya had lost nearly 20 pounds, her hands shook constantly, and she exhibited signs of severe sleep deprivation. Her speech was rapid and often disjointed, and she had difficulty maintaining eye contact. These were classic symptoms of a psychological break, possibly triggered by the stress of moving to a new city and living alone for the first time. Dr. Rodriguez prescribed anti-anxiety medication and scheduled twice-weekly sessions. She also suggested that Maya stay with friends for a few days to get proper rest away from the apartment. But Maya's condition didn't improve. If anything, it worsened. During their sessions, Maya would describe new incidents with increasingly elaborate detail. She claimed the entity was following her even when she left the apartment, appearing in other reflective surfaces, bathroom mirrors, car windows, even the surface of her coffee. "It's not just the mirror anymore," Maya insisted during one particularly difficult session. "It's like it's marked me. Like it knows I've seen it, and now it won't let me go." Dr. Rodriguez began to suspect that Maya was experiencing a form of delusional parasitosis, a condition where patients believe they are being attacked by parasites or, in this case, supernatural entities. The physical symptoms Maya described, the scratches, the exhaustion, the feeling of being watched, could all be self-induced or psychosomatic. But then Dr. Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything. She agreed to visit Maya's apartment. The visit was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. Dr. Rodriguez arrived with a colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, a neurologist who specialized in sleep disorders. They had planned to spend an hour in the apartment, observing Maya's behavior in her home environment and documenting any obvious environmental factors that might be contributing to her distress. Neither doctor was prepared for what they encountered. The apartment was unnaturally cold, despite the heating system running at full capacity. The temperature difference was so pronounced that Dr. Rodriguez could see her breath. More disturbing was the mirror itself. Both doctors immediately felt an overwhelming sense of unease when they looked at it. "There's something wrong with that mirror," Dr. Webb whispered to his colleague. "The perspective is off. It's like it's showing depth that shouldn't be there." They spent 45 minutes in the apartment, during which time both doctors experienced unexplained phenomena. Dr. Rodriguez's digital recorder malfunctioned, producing only static and what sounded like whispered voices. Dr. Webb's phone battery drained completely despite being fully charged when he arrived. But the most disturbing incident occurred when Dr. Rodriguez approached the mirror to examine it more closely. As she stood before it, she could have sworn she saw movement in the reflection, not her own movement, but something behind her. When she turned around, nothing was there. But when she looked back at the mirror, the thing was still there, watching her with eyes that seemed to hold ancient malice. Both doctors left the apartment shaken and unsure how to proceed. Dr. Rodriguez, a woman of science who had built her career on rational analysis, found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about reality. "I can't explain what we experienced," she told Dr. Webb later. "But I know it wasn't psychological. There's something in that apartment, something connected to that mirror." They decided to bring in additional help. Dr. Rodriguez contacted Father Miguel Santos, a Catholic priest who had experience with cases of alleged demonic possession. Father Santos had studied at the Vatican and was part of a small group of clergy trained to investigate supernatural claims. Father Santos arrived at the apartment with holy water, blessed salt, and a skeptical attitude. He had investigated dozens of supposed hauntings and demonic possessions, and in every case, he had found natural explanations. But Maya's case was different. The priest spent 3 hours in the apartment, during which time he conducted what he called environmental assessment, essentially, checking for any signs of genuine supernatural activity. He found several disturbing elements: the temperature anomalies, the electronic malfunctions, and what he described as a presence of genuine malevolence. But most disturbing was his interaction with the mirror itself. Father Santos had approached it while reciting prayers, and the mirror had responded. The surface had rippled like water, and a sound like breaking glass had filled the room. The priest had seen something in the reflection, a face that he later described as the embodiment of pure evil. "This is not a psychological condition," Father Santos told Dr. Rodriguez afterward. "This woman is dealing with something that exists beyond our understanding of reality. The mirror is acting as a conduit, a doorway between our world and something else." The priest's recommendation was immediate and drastic: the mirror needed to be destroyed, and Maya needed to be removed from the apartment permanently. The team, Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Webb, and Father Santos, faced a dilemma that challenged everything they thought they knew about reality. Each had approached Maya's case from their own professional perspective, and each had been forced to confront evidence that defied conventional explanation. Dr. Rodriguez, despite her training and skepticism, found herself unable to dismiss what she had experienced. The physical evidence was undeniable: the temperature readings, the electronic malfunctions, the documented changes in Maya's physical condition. More importantly, she had witnessed phenomena that couldn't be explained by psychology or medical science. "I've been practicing psychiatry for 15 years, she confided to her colleague. "I've seen every form of delusion, every type of psychological break. This isn't mental illness. This is something else entirely." Dr. Webb, the neurologist, had initially believed Maya's experiences could be explained by sleep deprivation-induced hallucinations or possible neurological disorders. But the environmental factors, the cold spots, the electronic interference, the physical evidence of scratches appearing on Maya's body, suggested something beyond brain chemistry. Father Santos, the most experienced with alleged supernatural phenomena, was the most certain of his diagnosis. "This mirror is serving as a portal," he explained to the team. "The entity on the other side has been trying to cross over for decades, feeding on the fear and life force of whoever owns the mirror. Maya isn't the first victim, and if we don't act, she won't be the last." But even within the team, there were competing theories about what they were dealing with. Dr. Rodriguez wondered if they were encountering a form of psychokinetic energy, the possibility that Maya's intense emotional state was somehow manifesting physical phenomena. There had been documented cases of poltergeist activity linked to teenagers undergoing emotional trauma. Could Maya's stress and fear be creating the very phenomena she was experiencing? Dr. Webb proposed that they might be dealing with some form of quantum entanglement or dimensional overlap, a scientific explanation for what appeared to be supernatural. He had read about theoretical physics suggesting that consciousness could affect reality at the quantum level. Perhaps the mirror was somehow amplifying Maya's subconscious fears, creating a feedback loop that manifested as physical phenomena. Father Santos remained convinced they were dealing with a demonic entity. "The evidence is clear," he insisted. "The mirror was created for occult purposes, it has a history of tragedy, and it's currently serving as a doorway for something that wants to cross into our reality. The symptoms Maya is experiencing are classic signs of demonic oppression: the physical marks, the exhaustion, the feeling of being watched." But there was another possibility, one that none of them wanted to consider: that Maya's story was an elaborate hoax. Dr. Rodriguez had encountered patients who had fabricated symptoms for attention or other psychological reasons. The scratches on Maya's arms could have been self-inflicted. The electronic malfunctions could have been staged. Even the temperature changes could have been created artificially. However, this theory had significant problems. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Webb had both experienced the phenomena directly, without Maya's presence. The historical research into the mirror's past was documented in legitimate archives. Most importantly, Maya's physical deterioration was real and severe, not the kind of gradual decline that would result from fabricated symptoms. As they debated these possibilities, Maya's condition continued to worsen. She had stopped sleeping entirely, claiming that the entity was now strong enough to manifest even when she was unconscious. The scratches on her body had become deeper and more frequent. Most disturbing, she had begun to change physically. Her eyes had developed a sunken appearance, and her skin had taken on a grayish pallor. "It's killing me," Maya told Dr. Rodriguez during what would be their final session. "I can feel it draining my life force. Every day I get weaker, and it gets stronger. Soon it won't need the mirror anymore. It'll be able to exist in this world permanently." The team realized they were running out of time. Whatever the explanation for Maya's experiences, supernatural, psychological, or scientific, she was dying. They needed to act, regardless of whether they fully understood what they were dealing with. Father Santos proposed an exorcism, both of Maya and the mirror. Dr. Rodriguez suggested immediate hospitalization and intensive psychological treatment. Dr. Webb wanted to document the phenomena more thoroughly, hoping to find a scientific explanation that could lead to a solution. But Maya made the decision for them. On the night of December 15, 2023, Maya Delacroix attempted to destroy the mirror herself. Using a baseball bat, she struck the glass repeatedly, trying to shatter what she believed was the source of her torment. But the mirror wouldn't break. Instead, with each blow, the entity within became more agitated, more visible. Neighbors reported hearing screaming from Maya's apartment that night, not just Maya's voice, but something else, something that sounded like multiple voices screaming in harmony. The police, responding to noise complaints, found Maya's apartment door standing open and the interior in chaos. Maya was found unconscious on the floor in front of the mirror, which remained intact despite obvious signs of attempted destruction. She was rushed to the hospital, where she remained in a coma for 3 days before dying of what doctors officially listed as multiple organ failure of unknown origin. The mirror disappeared from the apartment before anyone could examine it further. Mrs. Kowalski, the landlord, claimed no knowledge of what had happened to it. Cross into our reality. The symptoms Sarah is experiencing are classic signs of demonic oppression: the physical marks, the exhaustion, the feeling of being watched. But there was another possibility, one that none of them wanted to consider: that Sarah's story was an elaborate hoax. Dr. Rodriguez had encountered patients who had fabricated symptoms for attention or other psychological reasons. The scratches on Sarah's arms could have been self-inflicted. The electronic malfunctions could have been staged. Even the temperature changes could have been created artificially. However, this theory had significant problems. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Webb had both experienced the phenomena directly, without Sarah's presence. The historical research into the mirror's past was documented in legitimate archives. Most importantly, Sarah's physical deterioration was real and severe, not the kind of gradual decline that would result from fabricated symptoms. As they debated these possibilities, Sarah's condition continued to worsen. She had stopped sleeping entirely, claiming that the entity was now strong enough to manifest even when she was unconscious. The scratches on her body had become deeper and more frequent. Most disturbing, she had begun to change physically. Her eyes had developed a sunken appearance, and her skin had taken on a grayish pallor. "It's killing me," Sarah told Dr. Rodriguez during what would be their final session. "I can feel it draining my life force. Every day I get weaker, and it gets stronger. Soon it won't need the mirror anymore. It'll be able to exist in this world permanently." The team realized they were running out of time. Whatever the explanation for Sarah's experiences, supernatural, psychological, or scientific, she was dying. They needed to act, regardless of whether they fully understood what they were dealing with. Father Santos proposed an exorcism, both of Sarah and the mirror. Dr. Rodriguez suggested immediate hospitalization and intensive psychological treatment. Dr. Webb wanted to document the phenomena more thoroughly, hoping to find a scientific explanation that could lead to a solution. But Sarah made the decision for them. On the night of December 15, 2023, Sarah Chen attempted to destroy the mirror herself. Using a baseball bat, she struck the glass repeatedly, trying to shatter what she believed was the source of her torment. But the mirror wouldn't break. Instead, with each blow, the entity within became more agitated, more visible. Neighbors reported hearing screaming from Sarah's apartment that night, not just Sarah's voice, but something else, something that sounded like multiple voices screaming in harmony. The police, responding to noise complaints, found Sarah's apartment door standing open and the interior in chaos. Sarah was found unconscious on the floor in front of the mirror, which remained intact despite obvious signs of attempted destruction. She was rushed to the hospital, where she remained in a coma for 3 days before dying of what doctors officially listed as multiple organ failure of unknown origin. The mirror disappeared from the apartment before anyone could examine it further. Mrs. Kowalski, the landlord, claimed no knowledge of what had happened to it. 6 months after Maya Delacroix's death, the mirror surfaced again, this time in an estate sale in Seattle. The listing described it as a beautiful antique mirror with ornate carved frame, perfect for any bedroom or dressing room. The seller, apparently unaware of its history, had priced it at $300. It sold within hours. Dr. Rodriguez, haunted by her experience with Maya, has continued to research the mirror's history. She has identified at least 15 families who have owned it over the past century and a half, and in every case, the outcome has been tragedy. She has tried to track down the current owner, but her efforts have been unsuccessful. The pattern is always the same, Dr. Rodriguez explains. The mirror chooses people who are vulnerable, those who are isolated, stressed, or going through major life changes. It feeds on their fear and life force until they either die or find a way to pass it on to someone else. Father Santos has reported Maya's case to the Vatican, where it has been classified as a genuine case of demonic oppression. He continues to receive requests for help with similar cases, though none have been as severe as Maya's. The mirror is just a conduit, he explains. The real evil is whatever exists on the other side, something that has been trying to cross into our reality for over a century. Each victim brings it closer to achieving that goal. Dr. Webb has published a paper on what he calls consciousness-induced reality manipulation, proposing that intense emotional states can create physical phenomena that science doesn't yet understand. His work has been met with skepticism by the scientific community, but he continues to research cases similar to Maya's. The truth about what happened to Maya Delacroix remains elusive. Was she the victim of a malevolent supernatural entity? Did her own psychological state somehow create the phenomena she experienced? Or was there a scientific explanation that we simply don't yet understand? What is certain is that Maya experienced something that defied conventional explanation, something that ultimately cost her life. The mirror, with its history of tragedy and its apparent ability to manifest supernatural phenomena, remains a mystery that challenges our understanding of reality itself. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of Maya's story is that it continues. Somewhere, in another city, another apartment, another vulnerable person is discovering an ornate mirror with beautiful carved roses and thorns. They're admiring its craftsmanship, pleased with their good fortune at finding such a beautiful piece. And late at night, when they're alone and the apartment is quiet, they're beginning to notice movement in the reflection. Something that shouldn't be there. Something that's been waiting patiently for its next victim. The mirror remembers. It always remembers. And it's always hungry. Maya Delacroix's story serves as a reminder that there are forces in this world that exist beyond our understanding, ancient evils that wait patiently for the right moment to reveal themselves. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, her experience challenges us to consider the possibility that reality is far more complex and frightening than we imagine. The mirror is still out there, waiting for its next owner. And when it finds them, the cycle will begin again. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Some hungers can never be satisfied. And some evil is truly eternal.